This is the Sky is Blue podcast.
Well, welcome to a special Curse of Maidenhead podcast from the Sky is Blue crew. That's me, Phil Cooley, Darryl Carpenter, Paul Fisher and Stuart Basson. Well, we've all got that dreadful fixture coming up, haven't we, this weekend? Did I say Maidstone? I did say Maidenhead, didn't I?
You did Maidenhead.
You said Maidenhead, yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll start again because I've just suddenly thought, did I say it wrong?
Okay.
Here we go,
Okay.
false start. Well, welcome to the Curse of Maidenhead podcast. Well, it's really Sky is Blue with me, Phil Tooley, Darryl Carpenter, Paul Fisher and Stuart Basson, but with that fixture that Chesterfield never seemed to do anything of any consequence coming up, and the Sparrats neck and neck with Woking in third place. It's a big game for the fixture that you look forward to, the absolute least. Let's just start off with Maidenhead. Are we going to throw that curse away, Darryl? 4 times we've been down to York Road, 3 defeats and a draw, never scored first, never been in the lead, never looked like winning, lost noses, gained dweebs. Not a place to go, is it?
No, and we'll probably lose at least 6-0. And I'm saying that.
I hope that's as good as your last project.
Well, that's exactly why I've said it, Stuart. That's exactly why I've said it. And I want to apologise to the entire Spyrite Nation now, on record, in the first minute of the pod, for my prediction of 10 wins in a row, because clearly it didn't go exactly to plan. So, getting back to Maidenhead, yes, we're going to get absolutely slaughtered, Phil.
But with 3 consecutive victories, isn't it? And another 7 in the league, we could end up with 10, Daz.
Well, yes, but I'm saying nothing.
All right, here endeth the pod.
And what makes it worse, Paul, as well, you and I have been on a fair few occasions down there, is from the press point of view, the facilities aren't A1, are they?
No.
They give you desks, but they're just about the same angle as the Eiger Mountain. And if you know what that looks like, it's almost vertical. I think somebody one day sort of said, I think we need some PowerPoints in the press box. So, how many do you want? About 16. So somebody put 16 in, all in the same place, or the other side of a walkway. So, if you want to get used to the PowerPoints, you have to drag your wires across where people walk, and then they're quite high up, so they're not even on the floor. So it's not necessarily been thought through well, has it, Paul?
No, not at all. If you've got a laptop, then if you could flatten it down with a screen facing you and the keyboard along, so it's high at a vertical angle, that's how you've got to write your match reports as well. So good luck to those people trying to do that, Liam at Norcliffe, and the club representative, whomever that may be. But yeah, as Phil says, you need a 10-meter extension cable just to plug something, your power in for your stuff. So no ISDN, and we're on Zoom. So on Saturday, well, I am. Phil's obviously via Tinterweb, aren't you, as well? So
yeah. Well, my family's going down there, and they're in the posh seats, and I think you get lasagna, but a free bar before kickoff. So they'll no doubt. They'll no doubt get into financial difficulties after my daughter's partner Aaron's been on that.
Well, when you're getting about 100 or so, about 1,000 fans or whatever it is, so you can chuck away a free bar, can't you? So you're not really losing anything.
No, absolutely right. Anyway, let's start off with looking at about how things have been, Stuart, because Saturday's victory, which was against FC Halifax Town, the 12th home win of the season, which equals the amount of home victories that Paul Cook got in the 13-14 championship season, and previously won at Woking in a extremely good performance the week before. And it's a decent run now, 5 wins and a draw in 6 since that 9 winless games. It's really got the club back into that mix for third place, Stu.
Yes, we are doing what the traditional playoff winning side does, which is hitting form at the right time. If we can continue a mixture of more wins than draws for the rest of the season, we're going to be flying. Really, we'll probably secure that third place if we do that, which will give us a short rest period until we have to take on a Bromley or a Boreham Wood or someone like that at home. And then we're off to Wembley.
Compared to last season's playoff mix, Stuart, hopefully we'll get into third place. But the good thing is, you've not got a long wait. I think it was about 3-week wait or something like that for a game last season, wasn't it? Because of the scheduling and everything. But the eliminators are the Tuesday, Wednesday after the end of the season, and then the semi-finals are the week after that. So you're straight into it. So if you are winning matches at that point in time, you're raring to go.
Well, you keep a certain momentum, don't you? That was always the big danger of finishing in second or third, is that you had a week off, which is good from the player recuperation point of view, but from keeping things ticking over, it is a bit of a disadvantage, really. But if they've compressed it all like that, then so much the better.
And Paul, looking at the remaining fixtures for Chesterfield and Woking, statistically, Chesterfield have got slightly the easier run in. Their average position for their opponents is just shy of 15th. Woking's is just shy of 12th. Both teams play 3 teams out the top 10. We've got Dagenham away, Bromley away, Eastleigh at home. Woking have got Barnet, which is this Tuesday night. Notts County away from home, Solihull in the last match. So slightly easier running for Chesterfield. Both have got 4 games at home and 3 games away. Do you think Woking have got the strength to slug it out blow for blow?
Well, they made a couple of signings, didn't they, to bring in to help them on the transfer deadline day, didn't they? Just to bolster their squad. From what I saw, I think it'd be a good game because, by and large, the way it's going to go, chances are we'll do well to avoid Woking in either the eliminator or the semi-final. It's looking like Woking that Chesterfield will play either home or away. So it just depends in that semi-final. There isn't much to call between the two sides, even though Chesterfield deserve to win at their place, and we'll touch on that, I guess, in a bit. But just looking at it, it's such a fine margin. Tomorrow night, ideally, I suppose you either want a Barnet win or a draw. Maybe a draw would probably be favourable, even though Woking would go a point ahead, but they'd lose that game in hand, where Chesterfield would have a game in hand at home against Torquay, which would be more of an advantage for for Chesterfield then, wouldn't it, going forward? So I'm just a bit worried about it. Might be all on that Bromley away game for Chesterfield. So I'm just worried about that game.
Well, and Bromley, of course, could be still in the playoff mix or not by then. But Daz, the sort of nadir of the season almost was that Woking home defeat, 3-1, 2-0 down in 8 minutes or so, was it? And an absolutely dreadful first half. Mandeville scored early in the second half, but Woking never really looked like conceding a second goal. So what's the difference between Woking at home and Woking away? Is it simply just Colclough's got into it and subsequently Dallas has come into the fray as well? Is it as simple as that?
And I thought our attitude was poor that night. They came out of the traps, clearly wound up, chasing everything down, pressing us all over the pitch, which is pretty much what we did to them at Woking in reverse. It was like, oh, well, we know what they're going to do now. We can deal with it. Whereas at home, we seemed to go in. Well, we were just off the pace from front to back, every position. I think we had a couple of decent opportunities first half at 2-0. Colclough had a good shot turned over by the keeper, I think, and we had another couple of half chances that, would have been way against the run of play, because every time they broke on us, it was like the charge of the Light Brigade, wasn't it? Yeah. And we'd nobody at all on the day that actually played up to their usual sort of 7 or 8 out of 10. It was a shocking performance, and I think when you look back at the reaction of the crowd, I know Cookie made particular point of this on several occasions, how he'd been disappointed with the reaction of the crowd, but I couldn't believe how bad we were for a game of that magnitude. We just weren't at it at all, and the crowd reaction was no surprise, really.
And to turn on his head, Daz, it was exactly the opposite at their place recently, wasn't it? That's as comfortable a 1-0 away win against your most direct rival that you could ever hope for.
Yeah, I'm a bit more confident than Paul if it comes down to a battle between the two of us, whether we meet him down there or at our place. I think we have learned the lesson of what happened, and it was clearly shown in the second game that man for man, we're a far, far deeper squad than they are. I mean, apart from the Amon chance, which was arguably onside, but a tight one, wasn't it, in the second half? They didn't trouble us at all, apart from those few corners just before half time. I mean, they were second best all over the pitch, and had we taken a quarter of the chances, we'd have got 3 or 4, wouldn't we? It was such a chalk and cheese kind of performance from us. I don't think they necessarily played any different to what they did at our place, but we were just shocking on that day at home. Absolutely awful.
And on the Amman chance, it wasn't a chance, it went in, flagged offside. But for once this season, the whistle was instant, the flag was instant, and Fitzsimons made no attempt to try and get the ball because, I'm not saying he could have got it, but he made no attempt because the foul or the offside was given instantly. It was probably the quickest offside decision there's been this season, and it was straight away flagged up. So the whistle had gone long before the ball actually hit the back of the net. So who knows? Who knows what would have come about it there? But I got a view, Stuart, on that the way the game went and us not taking the chances. I think that did us a favour because it meant that we had to be absolutely on it for 90 minutes in a pressure situation against your closest rivals. If playoffs aren't that, what are they? So, if we'd have been 3-0, they'd have been beaten, we'd have been coasting, no pressure points. As it was, they didn't feel as though there were pressure points, but you're only 1 goal in front.
Yeah, I couldn't watch the game at all because while it was in progress, I was stood outside a place called Forbidden Planet on Shaftesbury Avenue in London, waiting for my son to come out with manga books. But that was due a prior commitment. But it just sounded as though, listening to you, that we were in so much control all the way through it. And as you say, I wonder if just the lead being 1-0 and still being comfortable kept us on our toes a bit more. They say 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in football, don't they? So I quite like the idea that you put forward there, that it made us concentrate all the way through the game from the moment we took the lead until the final whistle. And I just on what I hear and what I've read, it seemed to be among the most comfortable, if hard working, but comfortable victories that we've had all season in terms of chances to the opposition and the way we sort of neutered their threat and all of that. Yeah, and the point you made earlier about what changed between the two games, I think that Colclough coming good and Dallas and McCullum coming in to strengthen the side is the difference, because it lifts the rest of the side. The rest of the side we are playing slightly differently, I think, in that everybody's not kind of pushing up so much as they used to. So the way that we were done on the counter quite a lot earlier this season, there's less chance of that now. Because we're a bit more, not necessarily direct, but we get it forward more quickly now. because we've got assets that can capitalise on that. But it's just seemed to me, as I say, listening to you, stood in the middle of London, that it was one of the most comfortable victories we'd had all season.
And as the point that Stuart's just raised there about the fullbacks not quite pushing forward quite so much is down to Colclough and Dallas, because they're the creative arms of the new look team, aren't they? Whereas before it had to be Jeff King and either Bailey Clements or Brandon Horton busting down the left hand side. And just as well, and I throw into this mix a little bit more, in that for the first time since he signed from Chesterfield, Jeff King has gone 6 appearances without getting some form of card. And that may be because he's not out of position so much, chasing back, trying to have to catch people. I know a lot of his cards are for Chelp and all that sort of stuff. But, I think it's no coincidence that all of a sudden, because he can concentrate more on defending, because Dallas and co are providing that threat, that he's not under pressure as much. And, well, the same thing, that'll make Palmer and Grimes look better as well.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. There was no doubt, I think, when he brought Lawrence in, it was almost in desperation, because he was clearly sick of being caught out down our left-hand channel. And Clements less so than Horton, but they've both been culpable over the majority of the season. That's where teams were hitting us down that channel. And I think he just said to Lawrence, come in and don't go bombing forward. Just give the ball to Colclough and let him do what he does. But you don't need to go underlapping, overlapping, wandering free, doing whatever you need to do. Just, drop effectively into a 3, which is what they've been doing at the back. And then be it Shackelford or King. And I have to say, I think Shackelford is the most unlucky player on the books at the minute not to be playing, because Jeff's not really been playing very well for a number of weeks now for me. And Shackelford was really solid defensively and also very good going forward. I mean, the performance he put in at Southend against their danger man, was it Bridge, the winger? Never gave him a kick. It was terrific. So I think it's a combination of saying to Lawrence, come in, sit. You don't need to do all the, daft runs and getting beyond people and all that stuff. Drop into a 3 whenever we've got the ball on the right-hand side. Just drop into a 3 and we'll go from there. And I think having got the new attacking weapons he's got, as Stuart says, you can play the ball up to McCullum. He'll hold it. And if it gets in back to Dallas, he can beat a man, but he's also got vision. He's got the pace to go past the main striker, which we've not had, all season really. And Colclough's absolutely on fire now. He's settled, isn't he? I mean, he's a cut above this division, probably a cut above the division above, in truth.
Paul there has Lawrence Maguire blotted his copybook and got the sniff of success, providing the assist from the edge of the 18-yard area for Banks's header on Saturday. Has the season crumbled because he's realised that going forward he can do something?
Yeah, exactly. I think. That's one to add, isn't it, for the assist list? I mean, he's not supposed to be doing that, is he? Of course. That's supposed to be Colclough's job, isn't it? Doing that. But yeah, what a cross, and he's got further forward as the games have gone on, and provided just this sort of barrier, hasn't he? I think that they wanted to be a little bit more defensive minded, and picking Lawrence is exactly what they've got at left back, even though it's perhaps not his favoured position. But yeah, it's been steady Eddie, hasn't he, since he came in? And was that against Wealdstone? Was it the?
No, well, Gateshead. It's coincided with the lead and run.
Yeah. So
we think the thing is we're not really sure if he came in against Gateshead, because none of us took our binoculars to absolutely check who those little dots were running around.
Yeah. I was closer than you by the tunnel. I think somebody came out with a number 6 on his back, I think. So, yeah, something like that anyway. I tell you what, it's free.
And if you read some of the comments on message boards and social media and everything along those lines, in that run of 9 games without a win, the best central defender we had was always the one that wasn't playing. Was it harsh on the combination of Grimes, Palmer, and Williams, or was that just a function of being too gung ho down the fullback roles? That's you, Paul.
Was it me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. I think he wanted. It seems to be he wants to sort of Horton and Bailey Clements to be a little bit more attacking, but not get caught defensively. So it seems to be caught in a sort of rock and a hard place with those two because they are excellent going forward. Whereas Lawrence is obviously a little bit more defensive minded, being naturally a defender, not expecting to bomb on, which, like we've touched on, it goes against what he did on Saturday. But I think Daz touched on it as well, that Loz can just slot into a back three if you want Jeff King to push further forward, for example, and leave Ryan Colclough as a sort of left-hand side. So it's an interesting change with that amount to go, and I wonder how he was persuaded to do that, because Lawrence Maguire, not even, he'd made one start against Colville in the FA Trophy. So who plugged in that idea to make him change that scenario? Because it's proper left field, isn't it? If you've isolated a player by not selecting him, and then from out of nowhere bringing him in. And I know that every player we've interviewed, Phil, has touched on how professional Lawrence Maguire is and has been by turning up to training, not moaning, for example, being there, being still part of the squad, and not just a drinks carrier. And he's ready to play when asked upon, and that to me is a perfect professional.
And we've had the conversation before, Paul, about maybe Lawrence has got characteristics that don't suit your average National League match, but he's certainly got characteristics that suit the Football League.
Well, yeah, I think it's a slower game. It's not as hustle and bustle. You can see the difference still in League Two, but Chesterfield, and by and large, I'd say Woking in there, Barnet maybe, not so much Eastleigh and Boreham Wood. They seem to be identical National League sides, but get a very effective sides. But certainly the top five could play football in League Two, no problem.
Yeah. Daz, looking, we've touched on Dallas and Colclough and McCallum, but let's just look at those three, because we were still losing when Colclough came in, but McCallum and Dallas have come in a little bit later, and some of the performances have been better. We talked about some of the strengths, but what do you think it's made to the dynamic of the team on the day? What changes do you think it's made to the dynamic on the day?
We get back to the old or the fast becoming argument: who's better, Quigley or McCallum? But for me, McCallum is a proper target man, holds the ball up, doesn't get involved in the nonsense argy-bargy stuff, just seems to relish the physical battle and wins it most of the time. He's better with the ball than Joe. He's got more appreciation of people around him, I think, than Joe. And he's linking the play. And now he's got pace going beyond him in Dallas and Colclough. I think that's enabling us, particularly when we come up against teams a little bit like Halifax did, and other teams have done it with the low block, to actually work openings, because we've got a quicker interchange with the man at the top, and then we've got runners going behind him. So Colclough's performances over the last few weeks have been outstanding for me. Left foot, right foot, cutting in. He's got an eye for goal. He can cross a ball. He had that poor kid at Woking on toast, didn't he, the fullback? He must have still been having nightmares about him last Tuesday, I think. Waking up in a cold sweat. And he's just... We all knew from reputation, he's played in the Championship fairly recently. You don't do that if you haven't got ability. And clearly Cookie Cookie has got inside his head. Now he's been there a few weeks and settled. He's probably one of the best players in the entire National League. And I don't say that lightly because there's some talent in there, but I haven't seen many better in our...
And to add to it, he's strong. He doesn't get pushed off the ball, does he? He's not like a traditional winger, Kevin Ely type. He's a strong lad as well.
Yeah, I mean he's a fair size on him. He's clearly as fit as a butcher's dog, as the old adage goes. And he's strong. And I quite like he's got a little bit of he's a bit feisty. He's a winner. I think he's a born winner. And you need as many of them in your team as you can get, and we need to keep him fit for the next 6 weeks or so, and I think we'll be okay because he's that important to us. He's a completely different player to Dobra, and aren't we lucky that we've suddenly found ourselves in a position where Dobra's out the side for any length of time, and we're still winning football matches, which wasn't the case quite a few times earlier in the season. So he's been a revelation. And Dallas, I think we all knew what we were getting with Dallas. I think that's quite an astute signing. I understand we've been trying to get him in for some weeks before Solihull finally relented and realised he wasn't going to stay with them, and they'd kind of written off the season because they let Barnett go to Wrexham as well, I think, didn't they, and as well as Dallas to us. And I think it's a perfect arrangement because the kid's clearly got flair. He can carry the ball. He's missed one or two, but he's a finisher. I think he's as decent a finisher as there is at this level. And that was a great deal for us to bring him in so that we could have a real good look at him, almost sell the club to him and say, well, look, we know you want to play Football League, but you can help us get there. And if we get there, there's no reason you can't stay and do it with us. So, it works all the way around with Dallas. And as I say, Colclough's been exactly what we thought he might be. But it was quite a slow start. But now he's in the swing of things. God, I wouldn't like to come up against him.
You mentioned about the Woking right back on toast. Funnily enough, in the commentary on 1866 Sport on Saturday, Jamie Hewitt sort of said Colclough had got their right back on toast, who of course was Tyler Golden. So it led to just a moment that I could instantly say, and I hadn't thought of this before, but of course he's shredded. Golden is shredded on the toast. So you need to understand marmalade to get that. It's a sort of a Paddington sort of reference, right?
Yeah.
And Stuart, with what Daz was just sort of saying there about Dallas and the finishing nature, if you were picking a team now for the first playoff game, would you play Dallas as the Owen Doyle role as the one striker up front, or McCallum, or Quigley, assuming everybody's fit? Because I think when Dobra came on as sub on Saturday, that was the opportunity to push Dallas further forward. And I know it only lasted 14, 15 minutes or whatever it was because of Dobra's subsequent tight hammy. But do you think the season will finish with Dobra as the one and as Dallas as the one, Dobra, Mandeville and Colclough behind?
I don't know. It didn't last very long on Saturday, unfortunately, did it? So we couldn't really tell how effective
one goal was
it
scored, wasn't it? And it was a cracker.
Yeah. I don't know, really. I don't know if you don't want to leave any of them out, do you? What a dilemma! What a dilemma that man's got, Paul Cook. What an absolute dilemma.
Back in training this week as well. So
he can play that sort of role, can't he?
But it's better than the 2015 League One playoffs, isn't it? Going in with no strikers.
Oh, good Lord, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Would I do it? I don't know.
Well, I've got a feeling for our first playoff matches, everybody's fit. Dallas will be the man up front.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my prediction. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's urging towards that little bit of formation that he wants to play, and he'll probably have. I don't know. Is there any change in the sub rules for the playoffs? I can't remember. There's no extra.
I don't think so.
Extra subs. So So he's got a dilemma to pick between Quigley and McCallum as the one striker, as the option. And he'll probably go with McCallum, to be fair. And it might be a bit harsh on Joe, in actual fact. But, at the end of the day, he hasn't scored since Boxing Day. You've got to put the ball in the back of the net, haven't you, really, if you want to be a striker? That's... I know it's cruel, but I know when he plays, he does try his best and he works hard. And but from what McCallum has shown in the brief time that he's been here, he's just got that little bit extra, I think, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and when you are playing as a one striker, Stuart, you do notice the not scoring a high amount of goals. We can look back to latter days of Saltergate and the hero that Steve Fletcher became. But, he only scored 4 goals in the one season that he came, but he got Jack Lester next to him.
Well, absolutely. And if you play the right way with that sort of player, and you do have players around him that can feed off him and put the ball in the net, then as an attacking unit, you haven't got a problem, have you? But, we're always looking for someone who can do everything and score, and those players are very rare indeed. It would be hard luck on Joe if we play one up front and we start with Dallas and we have McCallum on the bench. We're not going to have McCallum's replacement on the bench as well, are we? I mean, we're probably not going to have a goalkeeper on the bench, so we can't have 2 sort of target men.
You never needed a goalkeeper subbing a playoff match, do you?
Well,
Daz, in terms of the rest of the season, 4 home games left, 3 away games, which we mentioned earlier on. Just how important was that win against Halifax from a chin-up point of view, from a confidence point of view? Because away from home, they got going at Gateshead, decent performance. Really, really great performance at Southend United in the circumstances, because they were on fire at that time. That was the first. That was the start of their run that they've had bad. Then the 4-0 at Wealdstone, comfortable. 1-0 at Woking, comfortable. But just couldn't get those 3 points out. So just psychologically, how important was the win over Halifax?
I think it was massive, both for the team and for the supporters, because the atmosphere during the bad run had been quite toxic at home, and the supporters were turning very, very quickly, with the exception of the Woking game, where I thought we deserved any abuse we got from the terraces that night. I do think a lot of supporters had turned far too quickly against the team in some of the other games, unjustifiably. I mean, the Notts game, if we look back at that, how on earth we've lost that match, I do not know. In fact, how we've not beaten them twice now, I do not know.
Yeah.
We've got one.
How we've not beaten Wrexham twice as well.
Well, quite, Phil, because we went to sleep for the first 10 minutes at Wrexham. Not picking up third man running for was it the first goal, and but how many chances did we create? And I mean, we talk about McCullum being a better finisher than Joe, which I know he is, but how on earth he missed that one in the first half?
Yeah.
That came across the box and went between his legs. I'm not entirely sure. And then the save by Rob Lainton, who again I'm sad to hear has got another quite serious injury, because he's a really outstanding goalkeeper. But that save he made from, was it Colclough's diving header, and then how we didn't get the penalty for Jeff King coming in for the rebound. Well, you just shake your head in disbelief at times, don't you? But I just thought Saturday was crucial in a lot of ways. We didn't play brilliantly, but we did a really professional job, scored at a great time. I mean, after the first 10 or 12 minutes, it was getting a little bit tetchy in the crowd again. We were struggling, weren't we, to just get a foothold in the game, and they were being quite adventurous for Halifax because they don't score many goals. but we gradually got a grip on the game. Banksy could have had 2 before he scored, couldn't he? Quite easily. And we had a number of other sort of opportunities and half chances. So when he put that header away, it was a massive relief. And after that, in all honesty, I never really felt there was anywhere else the 3 points were going. And that could just be the springboard now for us to finish off these last 4 home games with good vibes going in. And I think the crowd will be a little bit more patient now because we're on this run. It was just a culmination of us dropping further and further and further behind Wrexham and Notts County, whose runs are just potty, aren't they? Let's face it. And people suddenly thinking we've gone from a chance of automatic to dropping out the playoffs again, like we did almost last season. So there was a lot of frustration around the place, but I did think that the crowd was toxic. And what was the other game we drew? Was the Oval game in the middle of
the Oval? Yeah.
The atmosphere.
Well, I think we drew. We were all dying of hypothermia, I think.
Yeah. It was just flat, wasn't it? The whole atmosphere was flat, and everybody, God bless them, that had gone down to the ground and cleared the snow and everything else. You'd have thought the crowd would have been right up for it. And it was like it was like an 11 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday morning after everybody had been out on the ale. I mean, both the crowd and the team, wasn't it? It was an odd atmosphere all afternoon, that one. So Saturday, getting back to your original point, Saturday was crucial, mate, and I think it might just be the catalyst to see us have a decent home run into the end of the season.
And Stuart, the initiative for the last 4 home games, buy 4 tickets for the price of 3. I'm sure will get the home contingent of the crowd up to an average that will be the record for Whittington Moor. I was looking at we're 24 supporters behind, equaling the average home crowd from 10-11, which is the highest home average, which looking at my records is 6,357 home fans only. That is. And if we'd have got 24 more home fans on Saturday, would have equalled that. So we only need a relatively small increase on our average this season to get that, which is remarkable, bearing in mind that we've been in a position where we were a couple of games away from getting through to the Championship in that run, and we've got more supporters this season than that. How good is that, Stuart?
Well, it's excellent, isn't it? There's no other word for it, really. And the club have, the public have responded very well. Obviously, the club have responded well as well by having initiatives to get people in the North Stand when the opponents are going to bring less than a couple of hundred fans. And if we can go on doing that for the last 4 games of the season, plus whatever is thrown at us in the playoffs, then we will have that record and we'll deserve to have it. But to say that we're going to be better than the inaugural season in this ground 10 years ago, during which we won the championship of the division. There's 2 seasons in there when we won the championship of the division, isn't there? There's a season in there where we got to the playoffs. What an achievement that is.
It's incredible, and to put it in perspective, and a lot of that will be the ownership, and a lot of that will be community initiatives. Of course, it will. We all know that. But 1920, the curtail season, which went through to March, it was about now we'd stopped playing, wasn't it? Back in 1920, and I know the club wasn't doing very well, but there was an unpopular ownership. The home average this season will be double that. Double.
Wow.
It was 3,423 in 1920. 2019, 2020, 3,423 the home average, and we're up to 6,780 odd home average right now. The last season at Saltergate was 3,470. So it shows what the effect the new ground has had, but it shows a popular ownership against an unpopular ownership. And belief in the club a lot more, because it is a lot of that. It's not about where you are, and those kids that come in on deals with their mums and dads and grandfathers and brothers and sisters and everything, like all of us when you start, your first match might be a defeat, but you get hooked. You just
Mhm.
get hooked. You either don't get hooked or you get hooked. It doesn't matter what your result of your first games are. And people are hooked, and they get mum and dad and everybody to want to bring them now, and it's just great to see.
There was a bunch of Cub Scouts in W7 last Saturday, and you see them all trooping in, and you think, oh, they're all going to be, no one's going to be paying attention to the game and all that, but they're all fans, they all knew how to support, and they knew who was who and all of that sort of stuff, So they were so people that are coming in and not just coming in because they've got nothing else to do, they are, genuinely the people who are going to be paying money to come in 10 years' time, when they're old enough to go out and earn a living.
Really, Scouts, Cub Scouts and Scouts, the natural team that they should support, of course, should be Chesterfield, because founder of the Scouts, Lord Baden-Powell, his wife, Olaf, was a Chesterfield gal. So part of the Brampton Brewery owning family. So, it's the natural dib location in the entire world. No
dib dobra.
Oh dear.
And the crowd on Saturday, Paul, phenomenal, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely sensational. That's without anybody in the North Stand. I was telling Adam Oxford that they're going to have fans in there and everything like that, and then all of a sudden, so when are they coming in? So anyway, they didn't come in. So there was very, very small turnout of Halifax supporters, completely aghast at their sort of club right now, in a sort of malaise, aren't they, right now? Even though they've got an FA Trophy final to look forward to, their league form is just tailing off, really, and they're looking over their shoulders, in actual fact, aren't they, at present? But the crowd for Chesterfield this season gone above and beyond, and I know there's a feel-good factor around the club at the minute. They're owned by the trust, who are all supporters, and the trust has admitted that they can't financially keep up with the running of the club as a full-time club. It's a huge club to operate, isn't it? And they need a bit of help. But credit to them, they've managed to go and get that help as well, whilst still keeping their community projects going. And the lifeblood of the club is what it is. And I'm really proud that they've done that. In actual fact, self-admitted that, look, we've got a chance here. We can get some investment. We can take it as far as we can, and let's see how it goes. And they've gone out and got Chesterfield supporters to bring in that investment as well, which is just really, really good. And in terms of the attendances, there is that feel-good factor which brings fans in, and I know they're trying to do things to make attractive for families to come. Has there been a sort of surge in population in Chesterfield, which is added to the figures? Because there's plenty of housing developments being built around Chesterfield right now. I wonder whether that's had a little bit of an impact, of going supporting your local club. If you've moved here to commute, for example, maybe is that something that could be tapped into? A new housing estate, put a few leaflets out there. I don't know. I'm not in marketing.
We'll talk about all sorts of stuff like that in a moment. I'm just off to the National Statistics Office down in Newport to check on housing starts and population of Chesterfield, North East Derbyshire and Bolsover. Well, apparently the National Statistic Office in Newport shuts at 5 o'clock, so we couldn't get all of the information that we needed on housing starts and the average number of householders per unit currently being built in around, well, I live in Claycross, in around Wingerworth. I think there's 8 million new houses. All the old Claycross Works has got new houses on it and everything along those lines, and there's replicated all over the region. But we were touching there on the not ownership issues, because the trust is still very much 75% owners of the club, but 25% of the shares, Daryl, have gone to the Kirk brothers, Ashley and Phil, both independently, have run successful businesses and made a few bob along the line. Ash has remained living in and around Chesterfield all that time. Phil moved down to London when he went to university in the 80s. But has kept in touch Their parents are from Chesterfield. They've supported Chesterfield. They've got more pound notes than your average person in the street. But they get the community thing, don't they? They've said publicly that they want to A, be here for the long term, and B, not challenge the ownership of the trust. Although they have said there'll be some interesting conversations later when they've got the club in a sustainable method, attracting further investment. But breath of fresh air, chances coming in. People who'll be gone if we lose a couple of games. What's your view on that change?
Absolutely essential. As Paul quite rightly said, for us to find two philanthropic local brothers, supporters of the team since they were young boys, still with obviously a huge affinity to the town, get the trust, get what it's about, the community aspect, the fact that the club is the hub and is the soul of the town, which many people I think rightly believe it is. And despite all the travails we've been through in the last few years, that's still very much the case. We wouldn't be getting the attendance as we were talking about earlier if that wasn't still the feeling, for the vast majority within the town. So to get these two guys in with the success and the financial acumen, business acumen that they both have, is a tremendous coup. And again, there were some supporters prior to the AGM where they're not sort of criticising the accounts and the board and the losses and all this kind of thing. I think the trust have been really open with this right from day one when they took over the club. If you look back at the early press conferences and in Trust the Trust, etc., they said, we'll take this as far as we can, but we know at some point we're going to need additional investment. Now, whether that's come earlier or later than they thought it might, perhaps accelerated with COVID and perhaps accelerated with one or two decisions in other areas they wish they hadn't made in hindsight, irrespective of which, they've gone out and found what looks like the perfect marriage for the future, doesn't it? And I, for one, I'm 100% behind them.
And you and I, Daryl, are lucky enough to have been able to have a little audience with the two guys. I think I'm going to take a little bit of credit on this because I think they're in it for the long term. Because down at Wealdstone, Phil Kirk went past me and he sort of says, "Oh, give me Mum Margaret a shout out on 1866," which I did. And then at Woking, Mum was there at Woking, and she was really, really pleased to have got that mention. So now Mum is on side.
Oh, right.
So that's going to keep it long term.
So
Mum's
if she listens to this podcast, Phil?
I don't know. We'll have to get her to listen to the podcast. So, but Mum's in charge there, and she was very happy with getting a mention. But they were saying, it was hinted at the AGM, but they were sort of saying that at times, not all of the time, at times in the year that the accounts referred to, there was £700,000 worth of talent not playing. And you also, a massive chunk of your budget wasn't on the park.
Yeah, that's a frustration, isn't it? Straight away. Even look to last season. When we players like George Carline, like out injured, and just adding to a name to that, and Shamanga from February, and that's a lot of wages, isn't it? Really over the course of it, we haven't seen Manny Oyeleki at all this season, and we're unlikely to. So, he's not on small fry, is he? Coming into the club from a League Two club, he's not going to drop down too much in wages. So, he's only made, I think there's something like him, Manny Oyeleki, Danny Rowe, and Kwasi Asante have only made something like, top of my head, about 100 league appearances since November 2020 between them. And it's not good, is it?
No, absolutely not. And similarly, Danny Rowe is probably up there right at the top of the wages tree. We don't know, but we assume that, bearing in mind his history and everything along those lines. And I'm not entirely sure it was a Kieran Maguire podcast a while ago when they did the top 10 earners in the National League, and Rowe, whilst it was done while he was still at Fylde, was 10th out of that 10. The rest of them all played for Stockport and Wrexham, I think. And Stuart, looking at the Wrexham and Notts County thing, I saw a tweet earlier on today that Notts County have passed the total that have won them this league every season they've been in it, and they might not go up.
Well,
so,
yeah.
We are talking different gravy with those two. For not so give their recruitment guys a pat on the back, but they've hit the jackpot with Langstaff, and of course Wrexham have just hit the jackpot with people with money that in the National League is silly. And so and Notts County have got a big debt as well behind them, haven't they? So it's not fair competition with those two. There's no financial fair play rules in the National League, so it's almost impossible to compete with those two, isn't it?
Well, yes. In that respect, I mean, Notts have that debt associated with them, but it's friendly debt, isn't it? I think, but I suppose they all are until such time somebody wants their money back. But at the moment, the owners seem happy to have that debt. I'm not. Yeah, I don't know if I'm kind of so aware that Notts have been splashing it about like brute on Henry Cooper, in the same way that Wrexham have. If they have been, then they haven't been making a song and dance about it. I don't imagine Langstaff is on, the same money that you imagine Danny Rowe might have been here, given where he came from, and that it was very much a season which could have gone either way for him, But as you say, come the end of the season, one of those two teams, and it's looking like Notts, are just going to be in the lottery with us and Woking and Bromley and a couple of others. So they're going to have gone through all of that, setting records, breaking long-standing Football League records for the highest goal scorer on their books and all of that sort of thing. And as you say, a points total that would have won this league for each of the last 10 seasons, probably, by the time they finished accumulating them. And that is going to be quite a thing to process mentally for that club and its players and staff, isn't it? Really, which might put them at a disadvantage.
Yeah, Paul, do you have the same view that I hold, and that you're desperate for Notts to take it to the last day of the season? Because with those players coming really quickly, if you've lost out on the last day of the season, you're going to come into the playoffs straight away in a different frame of mind to if you've had 3 or 4 matches to know you're in the playoffs and not going up automatically. I desperately want Wrexham to lose at home to Notts County on Easter, whenever it is, Easter Monday or whatever date it is. But for me, one of the potential advantages would be if Notts or Wrexham fail on the last day.
I agree. Looking at the scenario, 3 p.m. on Easter Monday is Wrexham against Notts County, same as we're at Dagenham. Keep your eye on that. That's a big game. Of course, it'll be on television as well. Not our game, I should add to that. But they'll have cameras at our game, I think. So
if it's Monday, we can stream it, can't we?
Yeah.
It's not Saturday. Yeah.
Chesterfield's game will be able to be streamed. Yeah, not Wrexham, Notts County. Yeah, it's a good point. That there's an argument, isn't there? Yeah, if you finish second in the table, you may not get promoted. A la last season, where Grimsby just came from nowhere to blitz the playoffs, and every game was away for them, wasn't it? And they managed to succeed in that.
By Manny Di Cerube, of course.
By Manny Di Cerube, who couldn't even get in the side on Saturday night. Top scorer for Halifax, couldn't even start with him. They started that awful Rob Harker. So, terrible player he was. So
I think that might have been due to the fact that Harker scored against us at their place.
Well, I got that impression. I thought that as well.
Saving Di Cerube for the trophy.
It was virtually the same team that he played, because he brought back Jimmy Somerville, or whatever he's called in Luke Somerville in midfield, and and they were just awful. Anyway, I digress. I'm going on about Notts County, aren't we? So yeah, you want the mood them to be. The benefit that Notts County will have in the semi-final is they're at home, and they'll sell £10 tickets and get 20,000 fans there, all rightly behind their team. But
Until they go down.
Until they go down.
They've got 20,000 people calling them.
Well, exactly. But the benefit is, unless there's an error by the Sparrows, it won't be Chesterfield medal in that semi-final. So, in fact, I don't think unless Chesterfield drop down the table to 5th, is it? 4th or 5th? 5th, isn't it? There's only way they can play them if you finish 5th.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, I know you've got your toes out and your fingers out and everything working that way. Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is that's why 3rd place is so important, isn't it? That if you do play Notts County or Wrexham, it's going to be on neutral territory, and that makes a big difference. Of course, it does, and it makes a few quid along the line as well. So no question about that. But they have, Daz. Notts and Wrexham have. It's been a fascinating battle. We, of course, did think we were in with a shout for quite a long time, and we've proved that we're as good as the two sides, even though we've not taken as many points off. Do you fear either of them in the playoffs?
I want Wrexham up, out of the way, gone, finished, done. They've got a robustness, a winning mentality. They don't have to play well to win, whereas I think Notts do. I think if Notts aren't controlling the game, they don't win very often. They had a stumble the other Saturday, didn't they, at Barnet, where by all accounts, first half, they battered Barnet. Second half, Barnet battered them. I don't think you get that with Wrexham. They're always in the game. And because they've got the goal threat, with even Dolby's chipping in with a few now, he's starting, isn't he? And Mullin, Palmer, they've got the set piece thing with the long throws. And I mean, to go out as they did on Wednesday or Thursday last week and persuade Ben Foster to come out of retirement, that shows how much confidence they've got in Howard. But if you'd seen the goal he conceded at Maidenhead, that was probably his last game for Wrexham, I would have thought. To be able to do that, I want them out of the way. Get them out of the way. They deserve it anyway. They were very unlucky last year not to do it. They almost chased Stockport down after they'd been on a crazy run. And they've been on a crazy run all season this season. So get them out of the way for me. I'd rather play Notts any day of the week.
Yeah. Both of those sides scored 100 goals already in the National League. I suspect there's never been a time when two teams have scored 100 goals. They'll both be over 100 points. Wrexham could get their next game, couldn't they? They're on 97. And it has been an incredible battle at the top there. And you've got to assume that if Wrexham go up, Notts County will be absolute favourites for next season. But would Macaulay Langstaff be still a Notts County player? You've got to ask that question. Of course, we don't know. No. But there'll be a lot of suitors after somebody who's on 39 goals already in the National League. So they might get a lot of money. But who knows, Daz?
Well, I know Paul had said, there were no necessarily quite as outstanding marquee high money signings that Notts had made. But if you think of the likes of Bostock, won't have been cheap when he came in. Levin A. Evans that came on loan would have been paid a fair whack.
He's gone back now, hasn't he?
He's gone back. Yeah, nice one of Stockport to call him back just when Notts squad's getting a bit paper thin, I think, and so on. So they have made. I don't think Ruben Rodriguez will be on a small wage either, because they managed to keep him for the last couple of years. So pound for pound, I think they've probably spent more than the fair share. Cameron will be on a bob or two, I would have thought. The defender they got from Torquay. So yeah, it'll be one hell of a battle. I just think psychologically, whichever one of them fails is going to have a devil's own job lifting themselves again for a playoff run. I think that's what did for Wrexham last year, really. I mean, I know that was an extraordinary game, wasn't it? The 5-4 at the racecourse that Grimsby won, but you just, it has to take its toll after a season like that and a run like they've both had to fall short and have to go again.
Eastleigh versus Chesterfield play a final, then it is. So.
Well, dafter things have happened, Paul. I still think it I've had an inkling for a while it might be us and Notts in the final, and what a great occasion that would be for the whole of non-league football and for both sets of supporters, because I think it'd be a hell of an occasion, and two good teams going at it hammer and tongs on a carpet of a pitch on a sunny May afternoon at Wembley. That's about as good as it gets, isn't it? And the ultimate prize, the ultimate prize.
Yeah,
and Scottish Cup.
Yeah.
You want that back.
No, that's true. Yeah, and of course, if it is Eastleigh in the final, and you put your money on 1-0 Chesterfield, that seems to be a pretty regular result against Eastleigh, isn't it? So but that's to go. Will we make third, Stu?
Yeah. Next question.
Will we make third?
Yeah. We will. Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you, Dan.
No, I would say
do
nothing. I think we'll bum
Seventh.
out and finish
Scraping on 7th.
8th.
Well, the good thing is there's now a gap between 7th and 8th. Quite a big gap, isn't there? And and the teams in sort of 8th and 9th aren't. Ironically, Solihull, who gave up on the playoffs and said as much in the release after Dallas went, are in 8th. So the team just outside the playoffs have given up on it. Dagenham and Redbridge, I think, when McCallum moved, had all but given up on it, and they're still 10th. So, and Bromley are 9th. And I think it was you, Paul, saying that it might come down to that Bromley away match to clinch it, which is the penultimate match. Of course, Chesterfield's last 2 home games are against the teams currently in 23rd and 24th, Torquay and Maidstone. So you'd assume that, Maidstone will be down well before that, I think.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that Torquay might be down before that. That, of course, means they play with no pressure, which helps them. But I'll tell you what, your last 2 home games against 23rd and 24th, you'd take any season, wouldn't you? You'd
ask for that, wouldn't you? Really, I think the worst thing about finishing 4th is you get a home tie in the eliminator, and you just got to go away, do it the hard way, and go away for the semi-final, haven't you? So, which would be Woking, wouldn't it? Then in that case. So
you'd assume that would be the with the case, but at the end of the day, we've shown of late our away form has been good. It's been better than our home form for 2023. Let's say 9 away wins so far this season. Woking have won 10 at home, so our away record is the same as Woking's home record, bar a bit of statistical normality, whereas if you look down to places like Eastleigh, they've been at home, they won 14 at home, which is 2 more than Chesterfield, but only won 5 away. Eastleigh away would be probably as tough as Woking away.
Yeah, and Woking have just announced the signing of a Polish centre half, used to be at Sheffield United, so till the end of the season. So it was never, there was a rumour that he was linked with us, I think, but I think there was a tentative inquiry at some point, but it never was anything more than that. But anyway, he's now Woking's issue.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, okay. Right. Have we got any other bits and bobs that we want to talk about before we all sit down and start thinking of the horrors of going to Maidenhead?
I was
going to ask first.
I've been reading.
Daz has started. Well done.
I've been reading some bits on the various message boards and social media today, and there seems to be a bit of a backlash amongst the supporters with regards to the over 80s and the increase in their season ticket prices. I think they were paying something like 70 or 80 quid
I think it was less than that. It might have been 50, but I'm not.
It might have been 50,
Sure.
yeah, whatever it was. He's certainly gone up substantially, I think, to mid 200 to 300s. And I'm sure the club have thought about that when it was an amazing offer that's been on, and I don't know how many season ticket holders we've got over 80, but is it really something we should be hanging our hat on for supporters who presumably been watching us many years? So I think that's a bit of an own goal, if I'm being honest.
They could have
and
gradually increased the costs.
Yeah.
And I think the rationale behind the change, and this is before the supporters forum was set up, and that's been our number one complaints about that by a country mile over anything else. I think there were people who were exploiting it to get a cheap season ticket in an elderly relative's name, and they didn't necessarily come to every match, but other people may have done. So you probably need checks and balances in there, but I think it's backfired a little bit. And also, I think there's some of the pricing structure for OAPs in the East Stand, because the East Stand was always cheaper than the West Stand. But the best view in the house is the back row in front of the TV gantry in the East Stand. That's where you'd pick. That's where you'd pick to go, isn't it? Because you can't go there in the West Stand because it's the soft seats. Yeah, but you can in the East Stand. And of course, you don't get the sun issue right at the back of the East Stand that you do further down. What row do you sit on the East Stand as? Are you front?
I'm in L. We definitely get sun, wind, and rain there. Yeah.
Well, you can't complain about the weather. Then you get whatever it is, you get it.
Yeah.
And yes, it's certainly been the thing on the forum, and that's been the comments have been passed on from many people via Dr. Paul Stankeld, who's the director in charge of supporter liaison, and the club very much knows about it. And I think probably this week we'll be making a statement about it. It's not in my control, so I can't absolutely say they will, but I believe they will. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not saying that they're going to solve it or change it, but we've been trying to persuade them to actually say what it's all about. And there have been a number of meetings internally with that on the agenda. I genuinely don't know what if anything they're going to do about it, or just say something about it. But I'm expecting that this week, and the first drop in of the forum will be on the Thursday before Good Friday, when we play York Thursday at 7:00 in the East Stand. So feel free to drop in. We will be putting that on some sort of platform as well, for if you're not able to go, you'll be able to listen in to that. We've just got to finally decide which is the most appropriate platform to use for that, but it will be given in time. So 7:00 in the East Stand on. I've not got my diary in front of me, so I'm struggling to think. I think it might be the 7th of April. Is it? I have.
Have a look.
Around my date. Yeah.
Thursday
the 6th. It's Thursday the 6th at 7:00. Yeah, York's on the 8th. So feel free to drop in or look at whatever the platform is. But I think you're absolutely right there, Daz, that's not gone as well as people thought it might have done. So clearly there are quite a few, but it's not hundreds.
No.
So it's the old, well, if you price them out in the market, you get nothing.
Yeah.
But equally, the club might have to have checks and balances for if people take the mick a little bit with a £50 season ticket, and the elderly lady or gentleman doesn't come very often.
Yeah.
And others do. Because you just that's one of the issues with the barcodes. You just go in and there's not necessarily anybody checking you. The back is there.
No, that's right. I do think on the opposite side of things, the initiative for 4 payments on standing order are a really good idea to try and help supporters in what are financially difficult times. In an ideal world, you'd have it paid over 12, but obviously the club are funding this themselves in effect and want the income in before the season kicks off. So I get it both ways. What it does mean, of course, is as far as I'm aware, no interest payments to remain on top. So you can't have it both ways. But I think that's a really good initiative that they have brought in.
Yeah, and just for, as you'll well know, Daz, you can't charge interest unless you're registered as a lender anyway. So
Exactly.
Yeah, they won't be able to. And the alternative, as well as both you and I know, is save a few quid every week in the local credit union and draw it out when you need it at the end of the season to buy it in one go. But
exactly,
that's a different thing. And of course, one thing that we've been teasing lately is Drew Talbot was awarded a testimonial before COVID. That all went south, but we're back on line with that. We'll be announcing a match soon, but the first event is after the Eastleigh game, 7:30 in the lounges in the Technique Stadium at dinner, where some of Drew's former teammates and colleagues will be coming for a question and answer session to honour the guy. So at some stage this week, the link up will be on the events page of the website to get that. I know it's only 2.5 weeks or so to go, but I think there'll be quite a few people want to go and honour and chat to Drew, who, hopefully for the testimonial match, I'll get it nice and lucky that if Town have gone up and maybe any potential opponents may have gone up as well. You never know. So it might be a bit of a celebration day. Who knows? Paul, have you got any bits and bobs you want to add?
No, apologies that this podcast is coming out rather later than it should have been, but the heavy fixture schedule has rather abated that. It's a very poor excuse, but we'll have a much quicker one out for the next time.
All these 600-mile weeks, these 600-mile away weeks.
Exhausting.
And a few nice little bits.
But you wouldn't knock it. I love my job, so it's good.
No. And a few nice little bits and bobs of records. We were talking about subs coming on, scoring and being subbed off. Armando Dobra first time, so that's prompted a little bit of subs for subs thing that you put out on CFChistory.com. The crowds we were talking about there and everything along those lines. 12 home wins already, which if we win the last 4, will equal the 10-11 championship season haul of 16. Still a way to go for we had a 19-1-1 season, didn't we, back in the 30s, which is the best home season. Never been unbeaten at home ever in a season. But yeah, anything else interesting of note, Stu?
Only just to say that we've been going through the whole website thing, which had got a bit slow and groggy over the years, and we've changed the way that files now link to the sort of pages and the headings on the website, to try and speed all that up, and also make it so that if you're looking at lineups, for instance, you're looking at the most accurate and up-to-date copies that we have. I'd rather let it slip over the years and wasn't updating them because it was such a long-winded round the houses process. But now it links directly to a Google Drive, and every time I update something on a daily basis, that is automatically uploaded, so that all works very well now. We're adding bits and pieces to it, adding more biographies to that section, so that's all sort of getting back up to speed now, and is hopefully a useful resource.
One of those biographies that saw the light of day recently was Jerry Clark, the great Jerry Clark, who passed away up at the upper echelons of appearances, but then a little bit like Jim Brown on the club books in other roles for some considerable time. And I always remember him in his tight blue tracksuit. I never saw him play. His tight blue tracksuit, running on with a bucket and a sponge. But he was very much a part of Chesterfield, Stuart, for a long time, wasn't he?
He was. We seem to be good over the years, don't we, of keeping hold of certain people like that who are a good fit for this club. You think of Jim Smallwood and you think of Ollie Thompson, and Jerry Clark was another one whose contribution to the club was probably as great once he stopped playing as it was when he used to put the blue shirt on and go out and play. We found some footage that was recorded by a friend of his in the 66-7 season or something like that, if not a bit earlier, which I think Peter Whiteley is hoping to get sort of properly smartened up and sort of presented on one of his YouTube things. So that's to look out for. We're just trying to do research into the games that the footage features.
And
so
of course,
quite interesting.
Jerry had relations in Mark Mullins and Mitch Mullins, who both played at apprentice level for Chesterfield, and Mark was involved, behind the scenes for quite a while as well. So it's been quite a legacy.
Yeah, it really has. He's not a name that perhaps leaps, to prominence, because he was in a position that was very much sort of defensive and a kind of a nuts and bolts sort of position in the side, rather than any of the more glamorous sort of Charlie Rackstraw type goal scoring positions or whatever, but you just have to look upon his contribution to the club with absolute respect, for what he did for us over the years. Worked without a contract, of course, when he was working on the coaching side, so could have been got rid of at the drop of a hat, and indeed was at one point. Came back from a holiday in Bude, I think, for the start of pre-season training, to be taken into a room and told that he no longer had a job at the football club. Well, how's that for you?
Yeah, and I think at that time, that was when he nipped across the M1 and teamed up Ernie Moss and Kevin Randall and got them into the old division.
Went over to Mansfield, didn't he? Suggested to their manager that he should reunite Ernie Moss and Kevin Randall, which they did, and the only time they'd ever been in the second tier. Thanks to Chesterfield Football Club.
He was 100% bona fide a Chesterfield fan, wasn't he, as well as a player? So, yeah, he was interviewed him for Stuart's book, and he was a lovely man. Like, so we really cared about the club, and wanted everything best for it.
When the Greenan, the Saturday evening football paper, ceased trading or ceased to be produced by Sheffield newspapers or whatever they call it at the time, Johnston Press. I just thought, who can I talk to get a few lines about that? And I talked to, I think it was Frank Barlow, but I definitely talked to Jerry Clark. And I don't know why I picked Jerry. Don't know, no idea. Can't remember why. Just that he was a local lad and been around a long time. And I was just asking him about it, his memories about it. And he just, at the end of the interview, just said, "Oh, of course. And when I was a lad, I used to deliver it round Barrow Hill." So I thought, well, I couldn't have picked anybody better to have talked about that. He said, "Oh, yeah, I used to deliver it on a Saturday night round Barrow Hill." And I thought, well, do you know what? The bit of coincidence and karma brought me to decide to interview Jerry. And I've still got that very crackly phone interview on my computer as well. So it's not. I was thinking about running it when he passed away, but it wasn't really good enough quality. It was good enough quality to see what he said. But
I don't know where our audio's gone, Stuart. I know you had it up there on the site, but I don't know where it's gone. I've got it somewhere, but I don't quite know where.
I've got it.
Have you?
I've got copies of it. Yeah, I've kept copies of all of that we did, or you did, for Saltergate Sunset. Yeah,
for real.
Yeah. Still got that somewhere.
Right, come on. Last prediction then. Result at Maidenhead. Daryl's not included in these because he's already said we'll lose 6-0 because his predictions are that good. Paul, are we going to do it at last? Are we going to lead there? Are we going to bite our fingernails and come away with 3 points from York Road?
Yes, I think we are this time. I think we have a better team, the best team that we've had going there. They're going to be a real nuisance, though, because they're not playing for anything at all. They lost to Dorking on Saturday. They've got a very workmanlike manager and team. Adrian Clifton isn't playing against us, so that's a good thing.
No, he's the sub who came on last minute for Boreham Wood, wasn't he?
Boreham Wood, yeah, and he's gone to Hampton and Richmond on loan, so that's quite good. Sparks is always a menace, isn't he, for them? So we'll see. But I think this year will be our year to win at Maidenhead.
Yeah, Sparks has been mainly a sub of late. He's only started 4 games all season, but he always seems to do it against us. There's no question about that. Emil Aqua's the lad who's scoring a few goals for them this season. And, you know, he's got a bit of
swimming with goals
with Southend. Yes, absolutely. And Stuart, can it be our first ever win on the oldest continually used by the same club ground in the world, according to the blue plaque?
I think we will. I think we'll go there and win. Yes, we just have that kind of. It's a bit more than confidence. I don't know. It just seems to me as though there's a bit of almost an inevitability about it. You know, that we are going to go and we are going to play well enough to get a win. You know. And then I suppose a certain amount of it is about how the other lot play, you know, because you can play well and the other lot can play better and you can still come away empty-handed. But, you know, records like they have over us are made to be broken, aren't they? You know, bogeys are meant to be whatever you do with bogeys.
I'm trying
things like that don't go on forever, said someone who follows a club that used to go to older.
That's clearly what happened a while back, trying to get rid of the bogey by biting your nose off. But that's obviously what that was all about, isn't it?
Very possibly.
So I now understand it. I now understand it falls into place. I mean, but I'm hoping for a hat trick on Saturday. Later on in the night with the family, we're going out to a very nice restaurant. Obviously, want the second part of the hat trick to be the win at York Road, but it's all got to kick off properly by finding a flipping parking spot, because it's a man. Parking spot, win, nice dinner, perfect day. We'll get a bit of Lou Reed on the radio at that point. So anyway, thanks for listening to us all of 4 old codgers rabbiting on about all sorts of stuff. We talked about football, we talked about shareholdings, we talked about opposition, and we talked about getting through to the playoff final at Wembley. So from me, Phil Tooley, also Paul Fisher, Darryl Carpenter and Stuart Basson, thanks for listening to the Sky is Blue podcast. Paul has promised that there'll be another one before too long. He's the only man that knows how to set them up, so blame him. Thanks very much for listening. Enjoy the rest of the season.
In the still of the night, at dawn's early light, in fact all day through will be a spy rite. This is stats we recite, we love and despise the ups and the downs, 'cause we're a spy rite. But now you can hear the things you hold dear, 'cause this podcast for you is called The Sky is Blue. So come on into where everything's blue and hear our review, 'cause you're a
And if you like this podcast, then don't forget to subscribe. Please rate and review us on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts and many of your favourite podcast providers.